Picture a man in an ER bleeding, and the doctor walks in and he goes, "So, let's talk about your childhood. Why do you think you keep ending up here?" Of course, that's insane. That's absurd. You don't do the deep work on a man who's bleeding out. First, you stop the bleeding, and then the reconstruction comes later. Most men in a divorce are trying to do it all at once. They're trying to survive. They're trying to figure out why they ended up there. They might be trying to fix the marriage. They might be trying to start a new relationship with somebody. They might be trying to be strong for the kids. They might be trying to rebuild, and trying to do all of those things, or even one of those things, can cause you to drown. It's usually not an issue around effort, but I would say it's an order thing. There's a sequence to this, and it's doing the right work at the right time. If you do the right work at the wrong time, and even good work becomes a wound. So what I'm going to do in this video is talk through the order and give you a map. And hopefully you can identify yourself in the map. I'll have a link down in the show notes on show notes. The reason order is the whole thing is you've lived your life one way for 30, 40, 50 years, and you can't just turn an ocean liner on a dime. It takes time to turn it around. There's a list to it. There's an order. You can't accelerate and start steering. I know nothing about ocean liners, but I assume you need to slow down. In my analogy, you need to slow down, start to turn, look at where you're going, make sure you're not going to tip the ship over. There's two ways that men can wreck this work. They try to do stage 4 work when they're still in stage 1. And if you haven't built the foundation, if you're trying to build something while you're in survival mode, you're never going to get there. You're just rebuilding something on sand. And the second way they wreck it is they never leave one stage. They stay in survival mode the whole time, but they never change. And so all they're doing is rebuilding the same cage. So learn what stage you're in, do that stage's work. That's the whole game. Stage 1, survive. And this is where you stop the bleeding. This is the acute stage. It might last days, probably, but probably more likely weeks, months, maybe years if you get stuck. And what you're doing is triage. You're not looking to heal. Your job here is to not make things permanent, to take care of your body, take care of your mind, get your body through the night, keep your kids as level as you can, and don't detonate yourself. This is not the time to excavate why your marriage failed. You can't do that here. When you're in free fall, those diagnoses have to wait. For me, I lived at my parents' place. They were out of the country. I was alone in the country in the winter. And it was cold. And I mean, emotionally cold. It was physically cold. I was in Canada, so it got dark at 4 o'clock. It was very depressing. And I did not do well in that environment. I was very lonely in an empty house. You can stay in that place until you can do the basics of life. You can sleep, eat, and get through a day without falling apart. And then you can move on to the next stage. Stage 2, wake up. And this is where you start to see patterns. Your eyes open up. You stop sleepwalking and you start noticing the patterns you were inside. This is where the deep work starts. This is where why did this happen finally begin. And it's an honest version rather than what did she do to me? For me, this was my pattern. I would believe her words and disregard her action. She'd say one thing and do another. She would send cute photos of the kids, and I've got this keychain where it says best father ever, and she gave that to me through the divorce. Meanwhile, she's sending nasty letters from her lawyer accusing me of all sorts of horrible things. The other thing she did was she would call my friends to convince them that I was abusing her. And I believed those words and I explained away the actions. One night I really saw it. And there was this smile I'll never forget. She told me how she contacted all my friends to put me in my place. She hadn't bothered with a few of them because she knew she'd never turn them. But I'll never forget that smile. So that was an actual wake up for me. I hadn't just been fooled by her. I'd been in a spell for years, and I was in it believing words over my own eyes because it was such an old habit. Been trained to believe somebody else's words over my own perception in order to keep the peace. That pattern didn't start with my ex. It was as old as I was. So that's what waking up is. It's not look at what she did. It's look at what I kept doing and where I learned to do it. And this is very, very uncomfortable. You can see I'm somewhat uncomfortable talking about this still because it's still very close to the surface at times. When you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's the whole point. Stage 3 is sever, and you cut what isn't yours. Waking up shows you the pattern. Great, I see it now. Now what do I do with it? Severing it, you cut it loose, and you stop repeating those habits and stories and the scripts you had inherited and mistook for yourself. You might have been a good man, the nice guy, the provider, or none of it. And that's where you start to break that chain. Where wake up is uncomfortable, I would say sever is the most uncomfortable. It doesn't look like you're doing anything. It doesn't feel like you're doing anything at times, but you're changing the engine underneath. I had to look at all the people who were around me, and I looked at the relationships I was tolerating, and I had to cut some of those people out, and that was really hard. Some of those people who had been around me my entire life. Now, some of those people I trained to treat me in a certain way and I didn't mean to do that. They treated me like a man without a boundary, and cutting that pattern meant cutting some of those people out. Your own story is going to be different from mine. It may share similar roots, but the thing that's going to be true about both is it's going to be very uncomfortable. Stage 4 is forge. And here is where you start to install sovereignty and you build the man who can run his own life. This is usually where I think a lot of men want to go to because it's action-based. But without doing those other 3 steps, you are building on sand. I'm not saying all of this has to happen at stage 4. All of these stages, you should be at the gym, moving in some form. But this is where you develop that trained body and you develop clean boundaries. You develop that clear sight because you can see the patterns you've been living by, and you can cut off those patterns when you notice them. This is where you have a clear sight to catch the pattern before it catches you. I think a lot of men don't want to love again because they got hurt so badly the first time. I think that's a mistake. And I think it's a mistake to approach relationships as transactional. There's something else beyond that where a relationship is more than the sum of the 2 parts in it. And you can't get there without learning to open your heart again. If you're still seeing love or a relationship as danger, you'll never get to that place. This is years. This is the ocean liner slowly turning around. But now you're building at least on solid ground instead of bleeding on it. The last stage is to transmit. And I think this is equally as important as the other stages. I think as men, we don't get the opportunity to share the wisdom we've developed. And a lot of the work I'm doing is around rebuilding that chain of wisdom that wasn't passed down to us. I didn't get any training on how to have a relationship, and I don't think a lot of men do get that. This last stage is not about you. It's what you pass down. You're going to pass that down to your kids, to the men behind you, to the lineage that you're rebuilding, to your friends, to your family, coworkers. This is where the wound becomes the gift. The thing that almost killed you becomes the exact thing you can give to another man or your son so he doesn't have to learn it the hard way. And this is the rest of your life. And I think it's the point. Here's a few out of order failures. If you're trying to wake up or sever while you're bleeding, you're going to break yourself open and you're not going to have stability and you're just going to collapse. It's like surgery in the ER. If you jump to forge or transmit a new relationship, a new life, a new mission before you've severed, you're just going to repeat the pattern, but it's going to look different. If you stay and survive forever, you'll survive, but you'll never change, and you'll be trapping yourself in a cage, and you'll have fewer people together. You'll have fewer people with you over time. If you feel like you're failing at recovery, ask a better question. It's not, am I doing enough? It's, am I doing the right thing for the stage I'm in? So first survive, then wake up, then sever, then forge. And then one day when you get to a point, you transmit. The code I would pass to you for this video is first survive, then reforge. There's a link down below to more on this. I've got a book I've written on developing the accountability in order to follow these steps. See you in the next video.